Tom woke up every morning before his alarm. Not because he was disciplined, because he was afraid. At 4:37 a.m., his eyes would open to darkness and silence. For a few seconds there was peace. Then his mind would begin its daily inventory of possible disasters. Did I send that email? Did I forget that meeting? Did I miss a deadline? Did someone discover I don't actually know what I'm doing? The thoughts arrived like clockwork. Beside him, Sarah slept peacefully. Tom rolled onto his side and watched her for a moment. 22 years together. The corners of her eyes carried small lines now. A silver strand had appeared near her temple a few years ago and multiplied without asking permission. She hated it. Tom secretly loved it. It reminded him that they had survived things: mortgages, babies, medical bills, a transmission replacement, a roof leak, college tuition, life. The world always seemed determined to take something from them, yet every morning Sarah was still there. Sometimes he wondered if she had any idea how much of his life revolved around keeping that true. Not because she demanded it, because he wanted it. Tom slipped from bed and padded into the kitchen. Coffee, the sacred ritual. The machine gurgled awake. Outside the window, darkness covered the neighborhood. In a few hours, his youngest son, Ben, would wake up and ask if he could practice driving again. Ben was 16, tall, confident, funny. Everything Tom wished he had been at 16. His oldest, Caleb, was 21 and finishing his final semester of college. Graduation was 3 weeks away. 3 weeks. After years of tuition payments, side budgets, skipped vacations, and countless moments of wondering how they'd afford the next semester. 3 weeks. Tom should have felt relief. Instead, he felt panic. Because if he lost his job now, everything could unravel before they crossed the finish line. He stared into his coffee. That thought followed him everywhere. At church, at baseball games, at grocery stores, at family dinners. If I lose my job, we're done. Not ruined forever. Just knocked backward. Far enough that all those years of sacrifice would suddenly feel fragile. And that possibility haunted him. Because Tom didn't think he deserved the job he had. Not really. Not if he was honest. Especially if he was honest. His official title was project coordinator. Unofficially, nobody seemed entirely sure what he was, including him. The company maintained large industrial facilities, pipelines, equipment, infrastructure, millions of dollars of machinery. Engineers designed things. Managers approved things. Contractors built things. Executives talked about things. Tom sat somewhere in the middle and somehow connected all of them. His days were filled with schedules, spreadsheets, phone calls, meetings, status reports, budget tracking, problem solving, and constant translation. An engineer would explain something technical. Tom would translate it into plain English. A contractor would describe a delay. Tom would explain it to management. Management would create a new priority. Tom would explain it to everyone else. He wasn't the smartest person in the room. Not even close. Many of the people he worked with had advanced degrees, certifications, specialized training, entire careers built on expertise. Tom had a high school diploma, a handful of community college classes he never finished, and 20 years of figuring things out. That was it. Whenever someone praised his work, he assumed they were mistaken. Whenever he succeeded, he credited luck. Whenever something went wrong, he blamed himself. The promotion 8 years ago had only made it worse. The raise was nice. The title looked impressive. The anxiety became permanent, because now there was more to lose. The meeting started at 8. Tom hated meetings, not because they were boring, because they exposed him. Every meeting felt like standing on thin ice. Sooner or later, someone would notice. Sooner or later, someone would ask a question he couldn't answer. Sooner or later, everyone would realize he was pretending. The conference room slowly filled. Engineers, managers, contractors, people carrying degrees worth more than his first house. Tom opened his laptop. The project schedule appeared. Colored bars, dates, dependencies, milestones, thousands of moving pieces. Everyone looked at him, waiting. Tom swallowed, then began speaking. For the next hour, he guided the discussion, answered questions, resolved conflicts, adjusted priorities, negotiated timelines, made decisions. By the end, people thanked him, complimented him, told him the meeting had been productive. Tom smiled politely. Inside, he thought, they have no idea. That evening, he arrived home exhausted. Sarah was cooking dinner. The smell of garlic filled the kitchen. Ben sat at the table doing homework. Caleb was home for the weekend. The sight of all three of them hit him the way it always did, like sunlight breaking through clouds. Home. The safest place he knew. How was work? Sarah asked. Tom shrugged. Fine. It wasn't a lie. It also wasn't the truth. The truth was harder to explain. How do you tell someone you're afraid every day? How do you explain the exhausting effort of pretending you're qualified? How do you describe the feeling of balancing your family's future on a foundation you don't trust? So he said what he always said. Fine. Sarah studied him. She had known him too long. You look tired. Long day. She nodded. The conversation moved on. Tom was grateful and strangely disappointed. Part of him wanted someone to understand. The other part was terrified they would. The first sign arrived on a Tuesday. An email. Corporate restructuring. Organizational review. Efficiency initiatives. Strategic realignment. Tom had worked long enough to understand corporate language. It meant jobs. Specifically, fewer of them. Rumors spread immediately. Departments whispered. Managers held closed-door meetings. Everyone pretended not to worry. Everyone worried. Tom's stomach became a permanent knot. Every email notification felt dangerous. Every calendar invitation felt ominous. Every conversation felt loaded. At night he slept less. At work he checked his inbox constantly. At home he smiled more than usual. Sarah noticed. Of course she noticed. She noticed everything. What are you worried about? They were sitting on the back patio. The evening air was warm. Tom stared into the yard. I might lose my job. Sarah was quiet. Not surprised. Just listening. I don't know that, he continued. But I think there's a chance. She nodded. Okay, that's it? What do you want me to say? Tom laughed. A tired laugh. I don't know. Sarah reached for his hand. Then let's start with the truth. Tom looked at her. The truth? The truth. She squeezed his hand. What are you actually afraid of? The answer arrived instantly. Not losing the paycheck. Not losing the benefits. Not losing the title. Those were secondary. The real fears sat deeper. I'm afraid they'll realize they made a mistake. Sarah frowned. What? I'm afraid they'll figure out I don't belong there. The words escaped before he could stop them. 20 years of fear condensed into one sentence. Sarah stared at him, then laughed. Actually laughed. Tom felt offended. What? You seriously believe that? He shrugged. I don't have the education, so? I don't have the credentials, so? I don't have what everyone else has. Sarah shook her head. No. What? You don't have what everyone else has on paper. Tom looked away. The distinction felt meaningless, but Sarah wasn't finished. You know what everybody calls you. I don't know. Call Tom. He blinked. What? When there's a problem. When nobody can figure something out. When two departments are fighting. When schedules fall apart. When people stop communicating. She smiled. Call Tom. He said nothing, because he'd heard it before, many times. He just never considered it valuable. The meeting happened 3 weeks later. Human resources. Manager present. Private conference room. 10 minutes on the calendar. Tom already knew. The moment he saw the invitation. The moment he walked through the door. The moment he saw the sympathetic expression. His chest tightened. The world became strangely quiet. Words followed. Restructuring. Position elimination. Business decision. Severance package. Transition support. Tom heard them, but they seemed distant, like radio static from another room. 21 years. Gone in 10 minutes. When the meeting ended, he carried a cardboard box to his truck. The stereotype existed for a reason. A mug. A notebook. A few photographs. A name badge. The name badge bothered him most. 21 years reduced to plastic and a lanyard. He sat in the driver's seat, staring at it. The badge displayed his photograph. Company logo. Name. Title. Project coordinator. Tom felt hollow, because for years he'd secretly believed this moment would reveal the truth. The truth that he wasn't good enough. The truth that he'd fooled everyone. The truth that his luck had finally expired. Yet sitting there, something felt wrong. Not surprising. Wrong. Like the conclusion didn't match the evidence. His phone rang. Sarah. Tom answered. Silence. Then, it happened. Okay. The calmness in her voice nearly broke him. I lost it. I know. Tom laughed shakily. You knew? I've known for weeks. What? You've been preparing for this since the rumors started. He wiped his eyes. I failed. No. The answer came immediately. Firm. Certain. No. Tom stared through the windshield. Cars moved across the parking lot. Workers entered buildings. Life continued. Without him. Then why am I sitting in a truck with a box? Sarah's voice softened. Because a company eliminated a position. No. Tom. No. His voice cracked. It means they figured it out. Silence. Then, come home. The first month was terrible. Absolutely terrible. Tom updated his resume. Applied for jobs. Networked. Interviewed. Waited. Repeated. Every rejection felt personal. Every unanswered application felt like confirmation. See, nobody wants you. Nobody needs you. You got lucky once. It won't happen again. Savings helped. Severance helped. But fear consumed him. The Florida dream vanished first. Then retirement calculations. Then timelines. Then certainty. Every plan suddenly felt imaginary. One afternoon he sat alone in the garage, looking at old boxes, old tools, old projects, old memories. The familiar weight settled onto his shoulders. Failure. Then his phone rang. A former contractor. Mike. Tom. Hey, I heard. Tom laughed. News traveled fast. Yeah, listen. Mike hesitated. We've got a problem. Tom almost smiled. Okay. A big one. Okay. Our project is behind schedule. Okay. Nobody can get the departments talking. Tom frowned. What? We need help. Tom blinked. You called me? Of course I called you. But I'm not. He stopped. Not what? Qualified? Employed? Important? Mike continued. Everybody worked together when you were around. Tom stared into space. What are you asking? Consulting. Tom laughed. The idea seemed ridiculous. Consulting? Him? No. Why not? Because I'm not a consultant. Mike snorted. You've been consulting for 20 years. The first contract lasted 6 weeks. Then another appeared. Then another. Then another. Tom kept waiting for someone to discover their mistake. Nobody did. Instead, something unexpected happened. People paid him a lot. Not for schedules. Not for software. Not for certifications. Not for degrees. For judgment. For communication. For experience. For trust. Tom resisted the realization. At first. Then gradually. Then less gradually. Then not at all. The thing he'd never understood was that expertise comes in different forms. Some people understand machines. Some understand systems. Some understand numbers. Tom understood people. He knew who needed more information. Who needed less. Who was frustrated. Who was overwhelmed. Who was hiding problems. Who was solving them. He knew how to turn chaos into progress. Not because a school taught him. Because 20 years taught him. One difficult day at a time. 2 years later, Tom stood on a screened porch in Florida. Rain moved across the Gulf. A gray curtain drifting over distant water. Sarah sat beside him. Coffee steaming between her hands. Ben was away at college. Caleb had graduated, found a job, and moved into his own apartment. The house wasn't extravagant. It wasn't large. It wasn't a mansion overlooking the ocean. It was enough. Comfortable. Peaceful. Earned. Tom listened to the rain. For a long time, neither spoke. Finally, Sarah smiled. What are you thinking about? Tom looked toward the water. The weird thing. What weird thing? The thing I was most afraid of happened. She laughed softly. Yeah, I lost the job. You did. I thought it would destroy everything. Sarah nodded. Tom watched the storm. It turned out it was just a door. A comfortable silence settled between them. The kind built over decades. The kind that didn't require filling. Finally, Sarah spoke. You know what I think? What? I think you spent 20 years carrying a name badge. Tom glanced at her. And I think eventually you forgot your value wasn't printed on it. The rain intensified. Tom smiled. For most of his life he had believed he was an actor on the wrong stage, a fraud surviving on borrowed time, a man who had somehow slipped through the cracks of a system designed to reward people smarter than him. But sitting there, listening to rain strike the screen enclosure, he finally understood something simple. The company had given him a title. The company had given him a paycheck. The company had given him a badge. But none of those things had created the man who wore them. 21 years of showing up. 21 years of solving problems. 21 years of carrying responsibility home in his head. 21 years of protecting the people he loved. That was the work. That was always the work. The badge had simply been evidence, not the source. Tom leaned back in his chair. The storm rolled closer. The future remained uncertain. It always would. But for the first time in a very long time, uncertainty no longer felt like a predator waiting in the dark. It felt like weather. Something that arrived. Something that passed. Something survivable. Sarah reached for his hand. Tom squeezed it gently. Across the water, lightning flickered inside distant clouds. The world kept moving. Children grew up. Jobs ended. Dreams changed shape. People discovered who they were. And somewhere along the way, a man who had spent half his life convinced he was a fraud finally understood a truth that everyone around him had seen for years. He had never been pretending. He had simply been working, and that, it turned out, had been enough.